I want to tell a SnapStory. So I'm going to tell a SnapStory about, well, who I am. My name is Matt Moffat. I own a company called Almanac Design. It's a small boutique design studio in New York. We work on mainly beer and spirits, a lot of labels, a lot of tap handles, fun stuff. And when I'm not kind of in between, or when I'm in projects, I often have a lot of questions, or I need to kind of keep thinking. I think sometimes your best ideas happen when you're not working on the actual project, but when you're kind of dabbling in something else. So at night, I draw fonts. This is going to be a SnapStory about this font that I built called Radio Corp. So I live in Tribeca. There's really great buildings all around me. And in our neighborhood, there are a lot of telephone buildings. And one guy named Ralph Thomas Walker designed pretty much most of them in the 20s. If you're familiar with him, he really loved kind of the radio plays and vaudeville and kind of that, Showtime kind of stuff. And it really kind of eked into his work. So he practiced in the 20s and 30s, so it was a lot of art. So kind of the cross of those two were, if you think about those buildings, there was a lot of geometry and a lot of design. King Tut's tomb has just been revealed at the Met Gala, and it had a lot of those kind of motifs running through it, so it really bled into a lot of the design at the time. Started thinking about radio wires in the Western Union building, which is right near us, and it made me instigated an idea around a font or a couple letter forms. This kind of came about. So typically what happens is I'll be sitting around and working or reading or something, and I'll just start drawing. So this was that page, and if you notice, this was the first letter form. I did have this idea that everything would be built kind of with a wide base, and there would be a repeating rhythm of 3 to 4 lines. Prime numbers are big. Primes are big in Art Deco. You shouldn't be looking at this other stuff, but this is where the idea started. So where did it go from there? Well, it just kept going and going. And typically I'll just start playing with different letter forms that I think are interesting. I'm often attracted to the J. I'm always attracted to the A. You classically are taught to learn the A. Where does it go from there? Well, typically, I use the word typically a lot, but it made me think about how I want to approach the copy. One of the things I love about design is that I like to tell a story. I like to actually do something with intent. So the reason why I chose this Walker guy was because I'd just seen a documentary about his work, and I'm lucky enough to live around it and walk by them every day, and I thought it resonated with me and had something that I could attach to. So I, of course, immediately went to Wiki. So here's his wiki page, and here's the Western Union building, the front of the Western Union building, one of my favorite entrances. And I just spent a lot of time thinking about I also kind of went into his history and kind of where he went to school and what motivated or inspired him is kind of what I talked about in the beginning. He ran in social circles that had him exposed to a lot of different types of design, stagecraft design, and Art Deco design. Vaudeville, as I mentioned before, which is not really Art Deco, but it was a Showtime design at the time, in that era. So with that research and the sketching, I then went to the Adobe Illustrator. And the first thing I did, knowing I wanted a wide base, was to develop a grid. I knew that grids were going to be key to this. So simple 8-column grid, built it on a square format, built everything around basic shapes. So right off the bat, I wanted to adapt the A, or translate the A. And that's kind of where these bridge ideas came in, and you start to see how everything is built. And of course I went through, the whole uppercase set. Once I finished that, I knew that lowercase was next, so I figured immediately it was going to be a 6-column grid just based on what I'd found with the uppers, and I just started building out. And then obviously we went to numerals. I particularly love this 3. I really love the contrast and scale. I really love the high and the low, but it still falls within the vocabulary of the face. And then it was about weight. Here's a thin. Here's a light. This is the light. That's the heavy. That's the regular. So once I finished all the forms, I moved into an app called Glyphs Mini. Some people use Glyphs. I like the Mini. It's more than enough for what I use. And then I really love this app. It's super intuitive, very easy to use. Basically, you just build to each letter form. You basically translate from Illustrator. Each letter form is placed, and then you just make sure all the curves and everything's correct. You clean it up in this point, and this is a bad example. The goal is to really keep as many points, keep it down to as few points as possible. Obviously, I failed. But this is a pretty complex shape. Not gonna lie, this is a lot of work. It took a few days just to kind of get into this point, because it's not just the letters, you want to get the numbers and the punctuation. And not only that, you're going to move it across not one, but two, but three, but four weights. So, it's pretty meticulous and detail oriented, but if you get it right, I think you'll end up with something that at least I'm pretty happy with. I spent a lot of time on this, and I feel like it shows the detail is pretty much there, but it's pretty. This is the Behance page. If you go to Behance, and I'll put my address on here, you can see kind of the beginning, and then each case or each letter form, and then you'll be able to see the weights as well as you go. Also, this typeface is for sale if anyone would like to have it. You'll get all four weights with it. Here's the price point, and it's available at Creative Market. You'll get an immediate download once you purchase it, and you can use it for however you like. You have full use at that point. I hope that helped. I hope it could explain sort of how that typeface came to be or where it came from. It was a lot of fun to make. It was definitely a sprint, and it was done outside of normal class. I think these kinds of passion projects and hustle mean a lot. I think it actually helps the client work a great deal. It definitely helps me to think. It's definitely one of those pieces of advice I always give to young designers is don't just work on your client load. Bring in your side hustle, and it'll make your client work even better. It makes you much more passionate about your work. You love your work more, and if you love it, then you're going to actually do something really with intent and work harder and make it even better. You got to make it great. I think in the end, all I'd say is keep an eye on this Snapchat link if anyone sees this, and I'll explain some other work. And also, please ask questions. I love big Q&A. We can do some Q&A around labels. I guess if you look into what I've been up to, you can see some of the work I've done. Again, check out that Behance site. And one of the things I'm psyched about with Snapchat and Twitter is that it's a way to kind of talk to young designers and hopefully help them kind of develop their career and learn from. I was going to say learn from my mistakes, but mistakes are good things. I think good things come out of mistakes. Change is good. Here's my Twitter. Here's my Snapchat. Hit me up and let's see. The one last thing I'd add is here's my website for the company. Please go take a look at that. I'd love to hear your feedback on that as well. This is my Instagram. So if you want to see what's going on, keep an eye on this Instagram account. The funny thing is, it's my personal one, not the business one. I mention this because if you remember, this was like the first drawing. And then the best part, what excites me is then each letter shows up one by one. It's honestly my favorite part of the whole process because I don't know what's going to come next. I mean, obviously I went into the G and then I went to the B and on and on and on. But each one I seriously have no idea who's going to show up at the party next. And sometimes you'll see me develop in progress. Like you'll see small shifts happen. So it's fun, I think, I don't know, maybe I'm narcissistic, to keep an eye on this account because it'll just happen. I can't explain how or when. I mean, I shit you not, this started on a Saturday morning. I think I finished on a Wednesday, but it really developed through Insta, and it always happens like that. You'll see this first one and the comment will be like, uh-oh, I don't know what this is. And then it's literally a fucking roller coaster after that. And I'm going to go here because I'm going to go really fast because it just gets kind of nutty. It just keeps going. Because then you'll see, oh, well, here's an upper and a lower. What happens with that? Okay. And then you'll start to see some words form. And then it's like, oh, shit, what about the numbers? Here's an early 6. That's not the final 6. Here's my favorite 5, for example. But it just, you'll see it kind of progress because now it's going into glyphs. And there's my little dog. And there's the punctuation. And there's the ampersand. I was so happy when that showed up. And here's the next snap story that I'll tell maybe in a few days or a week. This thing literally happened over a weekend. I mean, that one was nuts. But that's a whole other story, and I'll tell you that some other time. Other than that, have a great night. I hope you enjoyed this and it was worth some time.